Mahalo everyone, and welcome to a Abyss Actor deck strategy and combo guide here on the Jolly Scarecrows channel. I'm hopefully going to take you through all of the main plays that this archetype has. We'll go through a few duels, we'll go through a few different decks, and we'll explore why I've picked cards in the ratios that I have. So what I've got above me here is what I consider to be your staple baseline for what every Abyss Actor deck should have in it. And to be honest, I wouldn't deviate from this too much in terms of your monster and spell lineup. This empty gap, this empty 15 cards or 15 cards or more, is entirely up to you. And what's nice about the Abyss Actors with the new cards from Photon Hypernova is that they're really good as either a going first or going second deck. Obviously, they're not going to be top tier, and in fact, you don't really want them to be because catching people by surprise is the main way that you gain advantage with the Abyss Actors. The option to go first now is really key, and like any going first deck, what you're going to be trying to do is establish monsters on the board or cards on the board to be able to negate what your opponent's going to do going second. The ways that you try and do that in this deck specifically are Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, a high link, so something maybe like an Aploessa, nothing out of the ordinary there. And the within theme version of that is the Fantastic Theatre, the Playhouse. And if you meet the conditions for the Fantastic Theatre, then for your opponent's first monster effect, what they're going to be doing is destroying one of your set, spell, or traps. And if they happen to be an Abyss script, then they're going to have negative consequences for that. So, for example, with Dramatic Story, that's going to bounce any two cards on the field to the hand. The problem with establishing all these wonderful negates that you might have the option to, like Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, is that a lot of the Abyss Actor cards lock you into the archetype. So specifically, there will be things like the Hyper Director, special summoning of an Abyss Actor from your Pendulum Zone, the search effect of Mellow Madonna, the scaling effect of Wild Hope that allows you to put your other Abyss Actor at level 9, and the effect of Abyss Actor extras on the field. And these are kind of plays you're going to be wanting to do quite often. And so this locks you out of doing a lot of the extra deck plays a lot of time. The key to knowing whether or not you will be able to go into a board of extra deck based negates is Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. That's why this card needs to be run at 3. It's already brilliant in terms of its being basically a free special summon, but its second effect is the most important for getting the combo off, as hopefully I'll be able to explain in the upcoming replay. Okay, so if you see a hand like this, you're going to be pretty pleased, because not only do we have the Abyss Actor Dress Rehearsal, the main searching normal spell of the deck, recently introduced in Photon Hypernova, we also have Curtain Raiser, and so that means we're going to be able to get the 3 cards we need to go into one of the big combos of the deck. And so the 3 cards you're going to want are Wild Hope, Curtain Raiser, and Dramatic Story. And the rest of the deck is set up to essentially facilitate this. So, special summon out Curtain Raiser, normal summon Wild Hope, and then use the effect of Dramatic Story targeting the Wild Hope. This lets you switch it for any Abyss Actor in your deck, and the one you're going to want to select is Superstar. Wild Hope is then destroyed, but this is good for 2 reasons. The first of which is that you're going to search your deck for a comic relief. The second of which we're going to get to after. We're going to use the effect of Superstar, which lets us set an Abyss script face down. We're going to use that one later. Now, people think of Curtain Raiser as a kind of an extender, a kind of a throwaway card, but actually in an Abyss Actor deck, it has an additional really cool function with its monster effect, where you can ditch an Abyss script from your deck and add a Abyss Actor from your extra deck back up to your hand. And this is really key for forming the later Pendulum Summon. In this instance, or in this replay, I don't actually end up using Wild Hope, but say you didn't have Sassy Rookie, you'll understand what I mean in a second. You'll be able to then immediately perform that Pendulum Summon, and you'll be able to bring out the Mellow Madonna, which we have searched via Beyond the Pendulum, as well as the Superstar from the extra deck, allowing you to go into a rank 7 Xyz. Because I have Sassy Rookie in my hand, I'm actually going to use that as a scale. So that's a scale 2, and the the Comic Relief, which I searched via the Wild Hope, is scale 8, and so that lets us summon out every Abyss Actor that we have in our current vicinity. Abyss Actor Extras is level 1, and so sometimes you might want to stick the Mellow Madonna down here. If you've got maybe 2 extras, then the kind of link plays that you can make are probably worth maybe the loss of the Odd Eyes, but we shall see. Anyway, now we're in business. So we can flip Abysstainment just by activating this card. We trigger Mellow Madonna's monster effect, which allows us to special summon Abyss Actor from deck, and we're just going to pick extras in this instance. And so here we're going to go into a rank 7 Xyz, I believe, using Superstar and Mellow Madonna. So we're going to bring out the Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. And what's nice about this is that if it's just sent to the graveyard, you can bring out any Odd Eyes monster from the extra deck. And so we're actually going to use it as part of a link summoning. And the link monster we're going to bring out is the Super Producer, the brand new Link 2 for Abyss Actors. And this card essentially revolutionizes how the deck is played going first, because we're finally able to consistently search for our field spell, Fantastic. We'll get to that in time, but of course, because we've sent the Odd Eyes Absolute to the graveyard, boom, we can bring out Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which is our first negate, an Omni negate as well, and an Omni negate that allows us to shuffle our pendulums back into the deck, so you can actually use this to refill things if you're going to be searching later on. Good count. So I'm going to ditch the Sassy Rookie, only in this instance because I love Comic Relief, and you'll find out why in the turn 2 guide. So the Super Producer, we're destroying 1 card on the field, and we're going to be playing Fantastic Theatre. So with the 2 Link 2s, I'm going to summon Aploessa, so we now have a double effect negate as well. And using, finally, the effect of Abysstainment, I get to tribute an Abyss Actor, and then put a Abyss script from my graveyard directly to the field face down. And the one I'm going to pick is Dramatic Story. Incidentally, I'm also going to put down Called by the Grave to end my turn. And that is kind of the main start of the combo. If you remember, when we used the initial effect of Curtain Raiser, I sent any Abyss script from the deck to the graveyard. You can actually use that to basically have any Abyss script you want face down for the end of this combo. So let's see what happens here. As we play through, the Gusto is summoned, so is the Speedroid. They're going to use an effect, and bang, it's going to pop the Dramatic Story, which is kind of lucky, really, that they didn't pop the Call by the Grave, because this is just destroy 1, set spell or trap. And boom, it's gone to the graveyard, and so both of their monsters are pinged back to the hand. And so other than their set, that's all they're able to manage, and we proceed to win turn 3, easy as you like. So that's what happens when you have a optimal hand. What happens when you have maybe something more standard, like what I'm presenting for you here? Well, there's a really consistent, nice introduction that you can do when you have 2 Abyss Actors in your hand, maybe one of which could be higher level, one of which needs to be normal summonable, though. So we'll go into this hand now, and basically this is going to set up 1 negate. We're going to do normal summon out extras, and you are going to pendulum summon the other Abyss Actor. This can be any combination. Really, it depends what you've drawn. It doesn't overly matter in this stage. What you do is you bring out the Link 1 Abyss Actor Hyper Director. So you can do this with any Abyss Actor Pendulum mod. And its effect locks you into the Abyss Actor archetype, which is why we are unable to then go for any of our other extra deck negates. With its effect though, what we can do is special summon any Abyss Actor from our Pendulum Zone and replace it with one from our deck. So we're going to bring out here the Mellow Madonna. We're going to replace it with Wild Hope, and you always want to select Wild Hope. Here I'm just actually going to rock out with Abyss Tainment. I don't need to do this, I'm going to do it anyway. Just basically give extras back into my hand via the summon that I've got for using the Melodonna. We're then going to go into Super Producer. So you don't actually need to do any of that. So quite often you would have Super Producer just from the summoned Abyss Actor and the Link 1. So you'll often end up in the situation where you've just got Super Producer and Wild Hope. You use Super Producer's effect, destroying Wild Hope, to search for the fantastic theatre, the Playhouse, if you will. And because you pop Wild Hope, you get a free search off. And so in this instance, I'm going to search for Comic Relief. You can obviously pick the Abyss Actor, which lets you do a Pendulum summon. I haven't talked about the other, the more active effect of Fantastic Theatre. So you can reveal, if you've got an Abyss Actor in your hand and you've got a Abyss script, you can search for another Abyss script. So in this instance, I'm going to search for the more useful dramatic story. It's more useful to have face down than Rise of the Abyss King. I'm going to perform a Pendulum summon, so I have now met the criteria for Fantastic Theatre, and I'm going to set dramatic story face down. And there are multiple things that are kind of key to the start. Really, we have only set up one negate, as it were, and we're not even in control of when that happens. But alongside that negate, obviously we do get about to thing of this place all eating Overraptor. Going to trigger the dramatic story. Boop. Bounce it to the hand. And because we've got Mellow Madonna face up on the field and an Abyss script has had its effects activated, we can actually summon from deck. And we're going to bring out the Sassy Rookie. And Sassy Rookie, the first time it's destroyed by battle or card effect, it won't be. And if it is destroyed by card effect, you get to special summon another Abyss Actor. And so this gives an additional layer of defense. And the key mindset to have with this combo is trying to survive until opponent's turn is done, essentially, and then you're able to get them back on turn 3. So what I've hopefully been able to demonstrate there is that the deck very quickly ends up locking yourself out of a lot of the extra deck negates. And so where this deck can shine is its versatility in terms of its use of either hand traps or actually just regular traps, because now it has the capacity to go first. Before Photon Hypernova, Abyss Actors really struggled to include traps because we were a go second deck. Now, because we go first, we can also set traps as well as have them in the hand traps. And for me, it kind of depends on both your meta, so where you're playing, if you're playing locals, if you're playing online, what other decks are doing, etc. Really, the deck is now hugely flexible with where you can go. And so what I'm going to do is present a few ideas for where that might be. I'm currently playing with something like this, and the key to driving these decisions is actually Opening Ceremony. And so Opening Ceremony is the card which lets you draw 5 when it's destroyed. And because of that, what I'm going to do is try and maximize on hand traps. So the idea is that I set up my opening board with the key being I've got Opening Ceremony set, my opponent's first monster effect, or even if they do spell and trap card destruction, bang. They hit Opening Ceremony, I draw 5, and then hopefully within that 5, or at least up until 5, so it might be a +3 or a +4, I'll be able to get in things like Nibiru's and Droll and Lockbirds that really prevent the counter attack being being lethal essentially, so that on the turn 3 we're able to go through. Now, bestials are really good in this deck, and also particularly in this going first build, because even though a lot of the Abyss Axes end up in the Pendulum Zone or in the extra deck, Hyper Director readily ends up in the graveyard, and so even if your opponent is not playing, I don't know, playing Flonderies or I can't think of an archetype for the minute, but basically your bestials are live from the moment you have them in your hand on your opponent's turn. The other nice thing about this deck, obviously, is that if you are going second, you lose the coin toss, then I mean you're already playing triple Nibiru, triple Droll, you know, so actually you're in a really good position to play the deck as a pure go second deck. And the last combo I'm going to show is the Comic Relief Abysstainment combo, which you might have seen previously on my last Abyss Actor video, but it's definitely worth showing again because of how lethal it can be. And so yeah, I'm going to show you a quick replay of the potential power of Opening Ceremony. Okay, so neatly in this duel, we're going to start off with both the Opening Ceremony and the Fantastic Theatre in our hand. It doesn't actually end up making too much difference to how we'd end up playing. We'd get to this situation anyway, but it's actually a bit of a nice shortcut. So I'm going to use the on-the-field effect of Fantastic Theatre to let me search my deck for a Abyss script. And I'm going to basically use the Dramatic Story to trade out extras into Superstar. I think I bring out Abysstainment here, but I don't know if that actually ends up playing a role. Or actually, no, it might do. It might do. I do think I bring back Dramatic Story. Anyway, I go into the Hyper Director, and I use Hyper Director to bring out the extras, and you'll hopefully remember this combo from before, in that I replace it with Wild Hope, I bring out the link to Super Producer, I target the Wild Hope, and usually that would mean Fantastic Theatre would be on the field, plus I'd then get the search from Wild Hope. And with Wild Hope, I'd search for Mellow Madonna, and then I'd play Mellow Madonna and use that to search for Comic Relief. As it is, everything's happening a step earlier than it otherwise would. And basically, the end result is I get another Abyss Actor on the field. But it's nice because the one I get is Sassy Rookie, which is the one which prevents itself from being destroyed the first time. And yeah, this is really nice just to have a 1 in the deck. You don't really need to run more than that, but equally, if you don't have it in there, there's oftentimes you're like, oh, like then I'd be like, I don't really want to search for any of these other Abyss Axes. This is nice, a nice little anti-destruction. So I'll use the effect of Abysstainment to bring back the Dramatic Story, and then I'll also set the Opening Ceremony from my hand as well. And so, yeah, we're now in the position where the opponent's first effect will either pop Dramatic Story or Opening Ceremony. Sometimes I do this, especially if I'm, going first and it's the first match. It might be that it's really up to luck as to which one of these cards is the best. You'll note that I've got 2 cards in hand, so when they play Allure of Darkness, normally I wouldn't Ash Blossom Allure of Darkness because it feels like a bit of a waste. But in this instance, actually, if they hit Opening Ceremony, then actually it's going to be an extra draw for me by hitting it now. Plus, I'll hit their allure, so I'll prevent whatever plays they're planning. As it is, a whole bunch of random stuff happens. And the Despian Tragedy, which they attempted to use to bring a Despia monster from their deck to the hand, doesn't work, so that effect gets negated and replaced with an Opening Ceremony being destroyed. So Allure gets negated because of Ash. A whole bunch of stuff chains, and then all of a sudden, bang, I get to draw 5. And look what the 5th card was. So if I hadn't have pitched Ash Blossom, I wouldn't have drawn, I say pitched Ash Blossom, if I hadn't used Ash Blossom, I wouldn't have gotten Nibiru. And, you know, I also got Druid's Worm, which I probably didn't time right in terms of playing. I'm going to let this duel run through. Okay, so we're going to speed through the duel now a bit quicker because they are going to do a lot of fusion summoning. And this is, I guess, one of the more problematic things with the deck is that, yeah, essentially in this stage, if you don't have the Floodgates to hand, then you're kind of screwed. But hopefully with the draw 5, you've been able to get them. Thankfully here, we've brought out the Nibiru. Now, one of the fusions they brought out was this Queritus, and so when it leaves the field, they can do an additional play, and so actually we still end up in a pretty tough situation. The opponent with a 13,000 attack Nibiru token, and two admittedly pretty dead fusions on the field, plus some searches. But we've survived, and that's the all-important thing about the Abyss Actor deck, is that if you survive to turn 3, having gone first, you're in a really decent position. Because look, we've got our Pendulum Scale still up, and we've still got Dramatic Story face down. I think we're in a good position. I hadn't accounted for Masquerade the Blazing Dragon, so given our low life points, we actually can only play a couple of cards. Fortunately, Pendulum Summoning just counts as one. I attempt to use the Rise of the Abyss King, so then I use the effect of Comic Relief to flip control between Mirror Jade and on the field Comic Relief. And to try and negate their eventual fusion effects in the graveyard, I'm going to bring out the Underworld Goddess with a whole bunch of my cards. Now, in reality, I do have IP Masquerena in this extra deck. I probably should have done that and then into the Underworld Goddess just to prevent it being targeted. But I considered this a pretty decent situation. I know I'm only on 300 life points, but they're down to top decking. So another way to set up the going first version of Abyss Actors is by incorporating trap-based floodgates rather than hand traps necessarily. Oops, I like Nibiru. This came to my attention when looking at a recent video posted by Trade Federations, who is an incredible Abyss Actor player. He recently did really well in regionals with an Abyss Actor build incredibly similar to this. This deck is heavily inspired by his. And so if you want to learn more about Abyss Actors, please go to his channel and look at some of his videos because he's really, really informative. His deck had Skill Drain and Goes and Match. You can also use things like Rivalry of Warlords as well. That also works nicely. And basically, these cards restrict your capacity for your opponent to play, especially Skill Drain, but have a minimal effect on the Abyss Actors. Obviously, Skill Drain has more of an effect, but actually, half of our monsters, you know, half of their capacity is within their pendulum effects, which still activate under Skill Drain. So you can still use Mellow Madonna's Search effect. You can still switch, say your opponent, okay, fine, you played Skill Drain, what I'm going to do is summon a big beat stick from the extra deck. Then you go and nick it with Comic Relief. So there's actually so much capacity in the deck, even while under these floodgates. And the kind of nice thing also about Abyss Actors is that your opponent's going to be a bit wary of spell and trap card destruction. You know, say they've only got Harpies in their side. You know, you've got Skill Drain, you've also got a mystery face down. What's it going to be? How's it going to affect? Boom, they've knocked out Abyss Tainment and you've summoned all your monsters from your deck. Another thing I wanted to address in this section of the video is on draw power. So I've seen a few builds kind of consider what it would be like to have more draw power in the deck, because if we want to get into things like Vortex Dragon and Apuessa, all this kind of stuff, you know, as stated at the start of this video, you're going to need Curtain Raiser. You need Curtain Raiser for that to work. So why are we not using heightened draw power in this deck? Why is it not a kind of turbo deck, as it were? You know, you go through, you try and get Curtain Raiser as quickly as you can, boom, boom, boom. You use things like, you know, your Prosperities, your Allures, you draw out as many cards as you can to search for that Curtain Raiser, or you use Small World and just grab it directly for one card in your hand. Why is that not the way to go? And the reason I don't think it's the way to go is, one, if you draw into Dress Rehearsal, that can be a bit annoying, because this card has to be played at the start of your main phase 1. And so that can be a bit of a bummer if you do that. The second reason is just that the complexity and the hoops you have to run through to get to the position where you've got out the Vortex and the Appaloosa probably aren't worth the investment into the draw power cards. You might as well just be playing your hand traps or your Floodgates in the deck from the very beginning, because at the end of it they're going to come to the same effect. Whereas if you're using Allure, whatever, instead of Skill Drain, all you're doing is, you're drawing 2 and you're hoping that you're going to hit something to get out your main combo. And if you don't, then you're back to your original 1 negate, or the Fantastic Theatre. And more often than not, I think the draw power serves you less well than actually having the Floodgates or the hand traps to begin with. And the kind of deck all features around things like that. So the monsters we're running in 3 are the monsters that we want to appear the most often, and so we want to be able to get off the Fantastic Theatre combo as readily as possible. And so that's why we're playing kind of 2 copies of Superstar, 2 copies of Mellow Madonna. Everything's now searchable thanks to dramatic stories and dress rehearsals, so there's no real need to clog up your hands with level 7 Abyss Actors that you can't summon. You need a summonable one to play the Fantastic Theatre in the first place. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is show you a quick preview of how little people like to see Skill Drain played in an Abyss Actor deck. Okay, so in this duel we are playing the Floodgate version, siding in evenly matched, but we've opened Curtain Raiser, so that means we can go for some of our wild extra deck plays. So I'm not going to pause this one too much. I'm just going to let this play through. So we're doing the... Oh, interesting. So, oh yes. So this is actually a really good point to make in this instance. If you don't draw Wild Hope, but you have Curtain Raiser and you have another Abyss Actor, what you should do is link that off into your Hyper Director, because that gives you the capacity to mill Rise of the Abyss King from the deck, using the Curtain Raiser monster effect to get that Sassy Rookie back into your hand. So essentially, you've got the link to Curtain Raiser's here, Sassy Rookie's back in my hand, so I'm then able to Pendulum Summon it in a non-link pointing to zone. I add Mellow Madonna, scale with the 2 and the 8. And basically in this instance I just go for IP Masquerader. So yeah, I can basically gauge what my opponent's deck's doing, potentially go to Underworld Goddess on their normal summon, potentially go to Appaloosa, potentially go to Unchained Abomination as well, which is one of our main ways of getting around face down spell and traps, and it's especially good with Hyper Director because you can ping your own card, destroy it, trigger Unchained Domination, and ping one of theirs as well. And part of the reason, for picking Unchained Abomination in this instance is the Skill Drain, because of course, a 3000 beta, and here they're like, woo, I'm going to go into something fun. I'm going to go into, they've got their double tuner, but they're going to do a Punk Fusion summon. And it's just like, nah, I'm not going to get you to do a Punk Fusion summon. And that's their turn done. And so like, well, okay, fine, I'll see if I can hold out. They don't think they can. So traditionally, Abyss Actors were very much going second deck, and that's because of their explosive power to special summon monsters, either through Pendulum Summoning or through Abyss Tainment, and we'll get into a replay of that shortly. The reason, partially the new cards that we've moved to a going first deck, or at least the going first deck is almost the preferred type now, is entirely the fault of this up here, Shangri-Ira. So this is going to lock you out of your pendulum zones, given the popularity of Kashtira. And again, this will depend on where you're playing. So if you're playing somewhere maybe where you know, there's not as much money floating around to buy the latest deck, or you don't encounter as many Kashtira, then it might be worth continuing with a going second build, because it has good access to all the things the going first one does. Plus, it has the neat OTK featuring 2 copies of Comic Relief and Abysstainment. And so up till now, what we've seen is Abyss scripts being destroyed by the effect of Fantastic Theatre, getting triggered by the opponent's monster effect. What we haven't seen is the effect of Comic Relief. And so when Comic Relief is given to your opponent, it can destroy 1 face-down card that you control. As in, so it goes to your opponent, it will pop 1 of your cards, but it will pop it as if it's an opposing monster. And obviously that will trigger the effect of Abyss scripts. Abysstainment, when it's destroyed, lets you special summon all of the Abyss actors that you possibly can from your deck. And even though we're only running 2 copies of Superstar, 2 of Male Madonna, there will be enough in there, even if you're archetype locked, hopefully, to give yourself 8,000 damage. Because, of course, when you bring out Superstar, bang, you can search Rise the Abyss King to pop pretty much every face-up card your opponent has in all probability. Unless they negate it or have some kind of protection effect. But, you know, you see what I mean. And actually, if you've got the level 7 on the field, this Rise of the Abyss King, which was formerly the king of the Abyss Actor deck, it's now almost, yeah, as you've seen in every replay, it's the one I've been throwing away. But it has this nice effect where if you have Superstar or Mellow Madonna on the field, your opponent cannot negate this effect, or at least they cannot negate the activation of the card. They can negate the effect. Often they're one and the same, but it is clear to make that difference. So kaijus are pretty good in a going second. Obviously bestials as well. I've shown them off in every other deck, so that's why I thought I'd put in kaijus into this one. And so what I'm going to show you now is the Comic Relief combo in action. Okay, so this duel is more of a kind of demonstration of the combo rather than showing you the deck against anything remotely competitive. So they start off with the Salt Beast and 3 face downs. Fine. We'll go with that, and actually with this hand that we've got, I'm just going to go straight into attempting the Comic Relief Switcheroo. And it is a lovely combo to watch happen. So I'm going to use the search effect of Fantastic Theatre to get Abysstainment from my deck to my hand, and I'm going to set it. So now it's ready to be destroyed. I'm going to use the Pendulum effect of Mellow Madonna to search for Comic Relief. I'm going to scale 1, normal summon the other. I will use the Pendulum effect of Comic Relief to switch the 2 monsters on the field, and once control of the Comic Relief has changed, it pings the Abysstainment into the graveyard, and bang, I can special summon all of the Abyss actors I want from my deck. I can use Superstar then to search for the Rise of the Abyss King, so I can pop any face-up cards my opponent had. Well, I'd say pop 4 of them, which would probably be enough. I'll use the actually sometimes really useful effect of Wild Hope, raising its attack by 100 points for every Abyss actor that is on the field. And so usually you've got a swap creature, so you'll end up with 4. And depending on what you pick, this can, and if your opponent's maybe got another monster, this can make the difference between game. This little boost in attack, this can make the difference to getting you to that 8,000 life point mark that you need to hit out. It doesn't in this instance, even if my opponent dimensional prisons the Sassy Rookie. I sent Sassy Rookie in first because of its anti-destruction effect, but it's not immune to being banished. But we're able to ping away and win the duel from there. Okay, so we're now on to the any other business point of the video. And the first thing to address is the lack of spell and trap card destruction. And you'd be right in that the archetype itself really lacks in this capacity. So we have things like Cosmic Cyclone, Harpy's Feather Duster, they're pretty common in the side. A lot of other types of spell and trap destruction can be featured there as well. What I would say is that Nightmare Phoenix, really good option for dealing with things, and equally Unchained Abomination, especially if you've been able to get it out via the effect of IP Masquerena. So then it's got that extra bit of protection, and you just have it there popping things. Droll and Lockbird, love this hand trap. I play it in most of my going first and going second builds in this current format. And the reason is you know, so many decks obviously have an easy starter. They'll be like, I'll check out an Allure, I'll do something like that. You lock them down. The other reason for doing it is because this deck is really good at a counterpunch following your opponent's turn because of its strong capacity to use Mellow Madonna and these other things to create a really strong board of monsters. They're not necessarily good negators. What they are is just, you know, a little 8,000 punch. So that capacity means that rather than trying to kind of nip a threat in the bud necessarily, because actually a lot more threats come from different situations, so maybe using something like Imperm or Ash, you know, you stop one card, well, they're just going to play another, and that's why these cards weren't used in the previous format. With Droll and Lockbird, you provide that limiter across your whole opponent's turn, and so you've been able to limit their capacity to OTK you, hopefully you're then able to OTK them back, and that's why I play Droll. Other extra cards, Macracker is in here, so it's really good with Fiends, which most all of the Abyss Actors are. And a good one to combo with is actually the Super Producer and IP Masquerena. So quite often, if you've done the Curtain Raiser introductions, you're able to Pendulum Summon, you can get yourself relatively easily into a situation where you've got IP, Macracker, and Super Producer. And that's pretty good going into your opponent's turn, because obviously with a Super Producer, you can end up getting yourself the Fantastic Theatre and the resulting set card. And with IP and Macracker, you're able to get yourself into a Link 4. The reason it's really important to do it with IP, and the reason why I run IP in the deck, is because Macracker prevents you from Link summoning with it on the turn it's summoned. I believe it also locks you into Fiends as well, so you kind of want to be doing that as your end play. Zeus, if you have it, then it can be worth running. Some people play, you know, Baguska and Abyss Dweller. They reasonably work in the deck because you're often in a situation where you've got Sassy Rookie Wild Hopes just, you know, wildly going around the place. However, since we've got Super Producer, actually this is often the card you want to be going to with your 2 4-stars, or beyond the Pendulum for that matter, but you're often playing that in your first turn. You'll be able to play maybe your second copy of Super Producer, and that can just help you out with board control, board management. You can maybe pop a Pendulum monster that you perhaps don't want to be in your Pendulum zone, replace it with something you do. And so that's why I'm not running Baguska or Abyss Dweller, but I am running Zeus, and that's because you can nick your opponent's Xyz with Comic Relief and then transform it into Zeus, and that's a really funny thing to do. A card I haven't addressed is Waking the Dragon. Some people play this, and if you're going to memify the deck, then this is definitely a good option for locals as well. So with this card, if it's destroyed while it's set, you can special summon anything from your extra deck, any monster at all. So you can go to your heart's content about what those things could be. This is more for fun, I would say. I've seen people, you know, play it being like, oh, this is a really good option for the deck, you know, this could unlock so many possibilities. It can, but mostly in a way that's humorous. Its lack of searchability as well, except for with the new Triple Tactics card. You know, play it if you want to have fun. Maybe not necessarily to win the game. With that, I think I will put the video to an end. If you have any comments, please let me know. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy playing Abyss Actors. I certainly will. And we'll see you for another deck video on the Jolly Scarecrows channel, hopefully at the end of the month.